The agenda was on the side this time, but it wasn't applicable.
So good afternoon. As it is 5:30 p.m., I will call this City Council meeting of November 6, 2024 to order. We acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people and pay our respect to those past and present. Tonight, our invocation will be led by Pastor James Sanchez of Life Church. If we could all please stand.
Lord, thank you for appointing these men and women to their seats of leadership in our community. I pray you protect them, that you grant them wisdom, that they seek to hear you through all the noise, and that they make the heart and mind decision daily to serve others in ways that are easy and challenging. Thank you for their leadership in the city of Oak Harbor. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Please remain standing and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this will be both a physical meeting and a virtual meeting. Some members of city staff or consultants may be participating via teleconference. Today's meeting may be viewed on YouTube, Facebook, and following the meeting on cable channel 10 HD 1090. Tonight, or we're going to do roll call next, but I have a request from Councilmember Marshall that he will be late, and Councilmember Wiesner has requested to be excused from attendance this evening, so I would entertain a motion to approve those. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
I move to excuse Councilmember Wiesner.
Second.
We have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
All right, good. Thank you very much, and I believe Councilmember Hoffmeyer is with us via remote, correct? Yes, I see him up there. All right, sounds good. Next, we're going to move to approval of the agenda. Are there any suggested changes to the regular agenda? Hearing none, if there are none, it is approved as presented. Presentations, we have no proclamations or recognitions or community presentations this evening, so we're going to move into citizen comment period. Citizens may comment on consent agenda items or subjects of interest not listed on the agenda at this time. Citizens will have the opportunity to comment on the remaining agenda items during the meeting as appropriate. Citizens can also visit our website prior to our meetings for methods to submit public comment or contact the city clerk, Julie Nestor, by phone or email. When submitting comments, please include your name and address. Public comments sent anonymously or from a false address will be shared with the mayor and council but will not be displayed. We received one new public comment since our last regular meeting. It is displayed here. All right, comment on public hearing items will be taken when those hearings are opened. Are there any members of the public present who wish to speak to items not listed on the agenda or on the consent agenda?
Mayor, we have one person who has signed up to speak, but it is for a public hearing item.
Okay, great. So we will have that comment during that time then. Is there anyone else present that wishes to make a public comment that didn't have an opportunity to sign up to make a public comment? All right, hearing no one else who wishes to speak at this time, we'll close the public comment and we'll move on to our consent agenda. We will now move to the consent agenda. Staff has presented the listed consent agenda items, all of which were included in the meeting packet. Are there any objections or changes to the consent agenda as presented? Hearing none, I can't see Councilmember Hoffmeyer, but I don't see anything. Okay, hearing none, may I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda? You have it on here, so it's actually in the rules that we're supposed to be doing.
It is actually in the rules, yes.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Great, thank you so much. I know that's something new for us, but it is in the rules that we were supposed to be doing it all along. That's why it's been added.
Right. Councilmember Hoffmeyer, I needed to see his hand.
Oh, sorry. I'm going way too fast.
Yep. Councilmember Hoffmeyer, do you vote to approve the consent agenda? It looks like his screen is frozen, Mayor.
Thumbs up button.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer, we think your screen is frozen.
Can we do just 4 in favor and 1 abstain? Okay, all right. So we're going to move on to mayor's comments. First, I would like to thank Mayor Pro Tem Heisen. My sincere thanks to Mayor Pro Tem Heisen for presiding over meetings while I was out of the office attending 2 conferences and on vacation. I am always encouraging our staff to take their well-earned vacation time, and I appreciate Mayor Pro Tem's service on my behalf. Yesterday's election, it is said that the one constant in this life is change. For most of us, change is difficult and carries a lot of mixed feelings and concerns, which we should acknowledge and respect. Our county, our state, and our country have elected new leaders, and there will be transitions in this weeks ahead that have far-reaching effects, both here and at home and across the nation. Now more than ever is the time for us to continue to move forward together as a community. Ours is a community of service, a community which values inclusivity, diversity, and engagement. I am proud to see this reflected in our staff and in the work they do, both here in our city and beyond. And I just wanted to share with you all a few examples of some of the things the staff have done in the past recent weeks that exemplify these things. Our communications officer, Maggie Aguilar, shares her communication skills and Hispanic heritage while reading to children at the public library each week. Maggie reads in Spanish while another volunteer reads in English, providing bilingual education. Our city archaeologist and project manager, Gideon Kaufman, is a member of the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe. Gideon serves as the vice chairman of the Tribal Gaming Commission, and his story is featured as part of the Indigenous Voices display at the library. And our Public Works team recently introduced preschoolers to the world of biosolids. It was great to see the kids so engaged while learning the value of sustainability. Thanks to our team for making biosolids fun. I am proud that our city attracts employees who are such dedicated community servants and leaders. So thank you all very much. City office closures. The city will hold an all-staff training and benefits fair on Thursday, November 7th. This is tomorrow. City offices will be closed from 9:45 a.m. to 2:15 p.m. This closure may delay the schedules for collection of garbage, recycling, and yard waste. Thank you for your patience in advance. City offices will also be closed on Monday, November 11th, in observance of Veterans Day. We invite you to join us at the Veterans Day program at the high school and the parade downtown. Garbage collection will move to the next day. Our city is still hiring and has openings for employment in several areas. See our website for a complete listing. With that, I will turn it over to City Council for any comments that they have at this time. Councilmember Hoffmeyer, have anything? All right, well, if we don't have any comments from anyone, then we will move on to our public hearings and meetings. And the first one is a public hearing, ordinance number 2010, levying general property taxes for fiscal year commencing January 1, 2025. And here to introduce that topic is our Deputy City Administrator, David Goldman.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. I hope you don't mind if I sit here as opposed to standing up, because last time I moved my computer to the table at the workshop, it ended up dying, and then I had to end up doing everything from my phone. So, presentation up? Perfect. All righty. So this is the annual increase to the City of Oak Harbor's property tax levy. As you might be aware from previous years, this levy is limited to a 1% increase each year. The increase is based on the implicit price deflator. So the implicit price deflator that was published earlier this year was 2.57%. So because that's greater than 1%, this substantial need ordinance that we've done about 4 times in the past, that's not necessary. We can just simply do the the 1% ordinance, as we've done every year since I've been looking at the records here for about 20 years. Next slide. So these are the historic implicit price deflator rates going back about 20 years. You can see that I think 1, 2, 3, there's been 4 times when that's been below the 1% line, and that's when the substantial need ordinance was needed. As you can see in the most recent year, it's 2.57%, so that special ordinances won't be needed. It'll just be a standard 1% ordinance. The property tax levy is needed in order to keep pace with the long-term impact of inflation, to maintain the existing level of services provided by the city to its citizens and users and customers. And not implementing the 1% does affect future property taxes. So the scenarios are make no change, there'd be $0. We'd also have to change the budget since the 1% is included in the budget. Also, the standard option is to levy the maximum 1%. That'll bring in around $75,000. And that calculation is done before consideration of new construction or improvements, which add about $40,000 or so on top of that. Anyway, the next slide shows the overall breakdown of the property tax levy rate. So you can see every line in your tax bill is there: conservation futures, cemetery, city of Oak Harbor bond, hospital bond, schools. You have the Oak Harbor School District, you have the state schools, 1 and 2, North Woodby Pool Parks and Rec District, library, and so on. You can see the relative percentages of each one of these different levies. Ones that say 0, it doesn't mean 0, it's just it rounds down to 0. Those top 2 rows that you'll see there. So based on this, so for every $100 or so you pay in your property taxes, about 27% or $27 of that goes to the city of Oak Harbor. The remaining $73 goes to all these other jurisdictions. Next slide. So there's another thing with Washington state law when it comes to property taxes. As the assessed valuation that's set by the county goes up, the levy rates tend to go down. So the way it works mathematically is if the increase in assessed valuation from the county goes up by more than 1%, and the city does the standard thing by, using the 1% levy to get the $75,000 or so, what ends up happening is the levy rate that applies to the properties goes down at a greater rate than the current levy. So next slide. So the total increase, of course, the 1% would be $75,000 or so. Once you add the new construction and the corrections that are done by the property appraiser, that equates to about $47,000 or so, for a total amount of $123,000 that is included in the budget. And this is a slide that shows the difference between going to the 1% and not implementing the 1%. It tends to compound. So the first year, you'd lose out in $75,000. The next year, it would be greater than that. It would be slightly greater than that, and greater than that, and greater than that, until it gets to a difference in 2030 of just under $500,000, which is why it's important to at least go to the 1% each year. Keeping in mind that inflation, when you look back at the implicit price deflator slide, inflation often exceeds 1%, and our cost of just doing business, regardless of what the consumer price index inflation shows, our cost of doing business with our bargaining agreements and with just the cost of construction and operating supplies is going up by greater than 1% as well. So the recommended action is up there on the screen, and that is the end of the presentation.
Great, thanks, David. At this time, I will open the public hearing, and I will confirm with Julie Nestor, our city clerk, that we've received no public comments on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. No public comments have been received.
Great. And I would just request any additional public comments from those gathered here with us this evening to see if they would like to step forward and have comments on this matter. All right, hearing no others, I will close the public hearing and call upon council for their questions and comments. Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
So this raises about an extra 75,000 per year total, correct?
Yes.
So if it was just housing units, and this obviously applies to property tax on commercial as well, you average that out, it's about $7 per housing unit per year if we have 10,500 housing units.
I haven't done the math.
Okay.
I take your word.
I'm doing it. So
And that's per year, right?
per year. So we're talking like
Yeah.
50 cents a month. That's not even including the commercial. So maybe,
Yeah.
a quarter a month or so. So that's all. I just like putting in a different perspective. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Anybody else for the good of the order? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
I was just doing a little quick math of my own, and thank you for quantifying the 473, whatever was on the last slide, the almost $500,000 in the next 6 years. If we divide that by 6 years, it's $79,000 a year, give or take. So it would literally cost us more to not raise the rate than it would to raise the rate, because we would end up paying more for it down the road. So it, and that's a concept that we always mention, but it's nice to actually see the number, versus just kind of being this ethereal unknown out in the future. So, I think it would be irresponsible not to.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else for the good of the order? Hearing no further comments, I would entertain a motion. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
I move to adopt ordinance number 2010.
Right, we have a motion as
Second.
presented, seconded by Councilmember Wiggenstein. Any further discussion before I call for a vote? Oh, Councilmember Hoffmeyer, yes. Councilmember Hoffmeyer, did you have a question, or did you just vote? Yeah, were you just voting for the?
Councilmember Hoffmeyer, are you hearing us? Looks like it's connecting to audio again now for him.
I think I'm back.
There you are, very good. Councilmember Hoffmeyer, we were just voting on ordinance 2010. Do you have a question, or are you prepared to vote?
I'm prepared to vote yes.
Great, thank you. So all in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, looks like it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. The next public hearing item is preliminary hearing ordinance number 2011, 2025, 2026 biennial budget. And here to introduce that item is our Deputy City Administrator and Finance Director, David Goldman.
Thank you. All right, first I'd like to say that word mayor should be stricken. It's now the council's proposed budget. Sorry about that. That was a holdover from the previous presentations. And I also went through the budget book and I changed the heading, appropriately too. So anyhow, as you will be aware, the budget document is comprised of a number of different sections. It starts with the mayor's budget message, and then it goes to council priorities. It contains budget highlights, an overview of the City of Oak Harbor's organizational structure, budget summary and funds, and the long-term capital plan. So the mayor's message goes over city service delivery, the value that staff has for the city and for the citizens and for the organization, grant funding for capital projects, reduced utility rates that the council voted on earlier this year, which will take effect in January of 2025, and also the city council priorities. So here's a list of the budget meetings and hearings. The mayor's preliminary proposed budget was heard back in September at the workshop in September. The mayor's proposed budget was discussed at the workshop in October. And tonight, we had the property tax hearing, which was adopted by the city council just now. And then we have the first public hearing on the budget, called the proposed budget. And then the final adopted budget is scheduled for November 19th. And public comments can be submitted through our website at that hyperlink you see on the screen. So as discussed at the workshop, the primary changes between the previous budget version and this budget version was adding $30,000 for the respite center modular. The roof is 22 years old and it is in desperate need of repair. Another addition was $39,800. All that is carry forward money that won't be spent this year, that'll be carried forward to next year for the marina dredging project. And then we went through the programs and performance measurements, which are new this year, and we just tweaked them. We clarified the performance measurements, and we went through the different programs to correct any typos or anything that we found that didn't make sense. So we have 61 programs throughout all the departments. The details of those programs can be found in the budget book, starting on page 77. The preliminary performance measurements are still TBD. We're looking to collect measurements. We're aiming for a monthly collection of measurements, so we'll be able to provide that to the council during our monthly update from the administration and the mayor. We will need to build a couple years of history, though, with all these performance measurements. We may find that some are working out, some might not be working out. Maybe we have a desire for new performance measurements to help the city council and help the public and help administration better understand city operations and how they're performing. And there's also, if you look in the program sheets, you'll see an area on the top on the department sheets that has a total dollar amount for 25 and 26, but then you'll also see the total program amount. Sometimes they won't match because there's things in departments that are just not part of programs, like capital expenses and debt and stuff like that. So that's a technical thing. So at the last meeting, one of the council members, Councilmember Wiesner, was asking to better explain the difference between last year's budget and this year's budget, or the proposed upcoming 25 budget, to show a better breakdown of how things are going up or how things are going down and so on. So he wanted it for all funds. So I put 3 slides together. This is the first slide. This contains the 24 budget, the 25 base, which is the budget, and the 26 base, which is the budget. And it shows that the change from 25 to 24 is about 9.3%, or $15 million. And it looks like the budget's increasing just by looking at this chart. But when you break down certain items that he was talking about, as far as, you know, the new thing that we're doing as far as interfund transfers and allocations for the facility and infrastructure replacement charge, if I was to take that out, well, this chart demonstrates what the budget would look like with the removal of those interfund allocations and also the fund transfers. And in addition, also removing the beginning fund balances, and ending fund balances, which are just resources, are not really revenues and expenditures. You can see from this chart, in actuality, the budget is decreasing slightly by 0.7%, and again in 2026 by 1.3%. And I have a chart here. I'll go over what's going on with each one of these lines as quickly as I can. So the benefits, you see those are increasing about 6.6%. That's due to inflation with our benefits and also new and reclassified positions that have been approved to be included into the budget, and also things that have occurred mid-year in '24, which now we have to budget for in '25. And in '26, it's just standard inflation, and also steps and, cost of living increases. Capital outlay, that's decreasing by about $5 million just based on the long-term capital plan. Communication, you can see that's increasing about 13.7% in '25. That's just based on the increases that we receive from ICOM. And you can see the next year it's barely going up by 1%. That's an estimate, that could change. As far as debt goes, you can see that's decreasing dramatically in 2025 by virtue of the city council approving us to negotiate with the state to reduce the debt burden that was taken out to construct the clean water facility, which in turn translated into a reduction in rates, about 19%, that'll take effect in January 1st, that the city council voted on as well. And in addition, there's an additional increase in debt in '26. That's based on the marina debt that was taken out that was taken out to refinance the dredging debt, because 3 years ago, interest rates were great. We got a great deal, 1.9%, saved a ton of money. But that matures in 2025, so that debt will be gone by '26, which is why that's going down slightly. The next line is our insurance. That is going up, but it's not, I know it says 23%, but that's because when the budget was put together, the 23-24 biennial budget was put together, it was back in '22. And there were increases in '23 and '24 that were not anticipated when that was first put together. In addition, we have increases going into '25 as well. But it's not just a simple, the rates going up, we've added stuff. So when you add facilities and add vehicles and things like that, it adds to the amount that you have to pay for insurance. And we actually, I met with our insurance, our insurance organization, the Washington City's insurance organization, yesterday, and they mentioned that increases in '25 are pretty much statewide. So it's not really an Oak Harbor thing. Leases and rentals. So this is a small line, but that is going up because, I skipped a line, sorry. Items purchased for resale. That line is mostly going up because of the Anacortes water rate increase. We received notice from Anacortes back in July that rates will probably go up 22.5% as compared to the '24 budget. But now, now that we've been working on our budget, I've been asking them to provide us with updated numbers, because there might be some capital projects that might affect those rates. Might have the effect of increasing the rates. I just wanted to get better numbers. Per the contract, they have to provide us with more solid numbers 45 days prior to the start of the new year. So that's next week. So hopefully I'll get those rates next week. I'm hoping that it won't be anything different than what they provided me in the rough estimate in July, but it's a definite possibility, so I'll let the council know, obviously, if that changes. The next line is leases and rentals. That's increasing only because of the urban forestry grant. The grant funded machine and booth rentals for both '25 and '26, so that's covered, the increase is covered by revenues. Operating and maintenance, that's a pretty large area. That's pretty much going up in conjunction with the long-term capital plan. There are items in the long-term capital plan that are classified as operating expenses, like repair and replacements, new roofs, those kind of things. Those can't go in like the technically capital area of the budget. They have to go in the operating area of the budget, which is why this area here is going up in '25, but in '26 it goes right back down because it's pretty much purely operating in '26. So that's really just a bump because it's a 2-year budget. All the capital or capital-related items go in the first year. Let's see here. Operating and maintenance, I talked about that. Professional services, this also contains some areas that are project expenses that'll be in '25 that can't be classified as capital. Public utility services, that's going up because of the 22% increase in solid waste and adjustments to the clean water facility to match trends on electricity usage. There's also increases to marina fuel, but that's offset by revenues, so they cover their costs with selling fuel over at the marina. Salaries, that is increasing along the lines of, with benefits, like I said before, there's some new positions. There's also positions created mid-year in '24 that have to be budgeted now. Also, we have bargaining agreements. We have to adhere to those. And in addition, this budget is approving a 2.5% cost of living increase for the non-represented employees in '25 and a 2.0 cost of living increase for the non-represented employees for 2026. Two more left. We have taxes. That's going up because of the utility tax increase that was passed to fund a new police shift and a drug detective, and there was an administrative position as well. That's, the utility taxes that the council approved in conjunction with lowering utility rates by 19%. Travel, that's a small line. That is going up to encourage more training and also to align costs due to inflation. We found out last year that some of the standard trips that we take on an annual basis, it just got way more expensive based on just the accommodation expenses than we were expecting. Because remember, this budget was put together in 2022. COVID was still a thing, and the economy was still kind of, people weren't traveling as much. I mean, people we were coming out of it, thank goodness, but still it wasn't quite to where it was in 2024. So we're finding that costs have definitely increased. But this is also to accommodate training and help building morale for our employees and stuff like that. So the final chart, that's the remainder. Remember how I said the first chart has everything? This next chart, I took out the fund balances and the fund transfers and that interfund charge stuff. That's this. And you can see that all the increase is here. And it's really just taking money from one fund, and putting it into the reserve for replacement fund, or putting it into the interfund reserve for replacement for vehicles and equipment and for software and hardware. So, all right. So now we just get into the biennial budget. These slides might look familiar, but since we're having a public hearing, I'll just show them again, and I'll try to get through them as fast as I can. There's the general fund categories. Of course, general fund is a quarter of all the funds. And the internal service funds that I discussed a little earlier with those transfers is 22%. The enterprise funds, which includes all the utility funds, and the marina fund is 42%. And then there's some other funds there that are about 11%. Hard to read, but this is all funds. This is the revenue trend category. I tried to break out the non-recurring revenues, which tend to spike from just the recurring normal revenues, and you could see between the 2 years, there's not really much of a change between the 25 and 26 years. And I talked about, the change from 24 to 25 already. There's some mix. Miscellaneous is a mix between recurring and non-recurring. And then you have the interfund revenues as well that I talked about. Expenditure trends, this is again all funds. You can see that the expenditure trend here in 2025 is larger because of the capital outlay and because of some of those items that are part of capital outlay, but also because you can see these transfers for that reserve account are higher in 25 than they are in 26. So for the general fund only, you have the property taxes, which are about a quarter of the revenues, sales tax, you have other types of revenues that come in, and also the utility tax and franchise fees, which are about 13%. Expenses by department, this is a list of all the departments in the general fund, from city council all the way down to recreation in alphabetical order. There's more details for each department in the budget. The general fund, this is the fund balance charts that I showed before. You can see that for the general fund, the beginning fund balance for 23 was like 3.3 million. We ended up with 6.7 million. And then for 24, there's the start, 6.7. Looks like we're going to end up with 7.6. For the next couple of years, that's going to draw down as we start spending money that was put into capital projects that's being carried forward into 25 and 26, but also for various other capital projects and different items that I had gone over in the previous presentations. This is just an overview of general fund, bargaining agreements, non-represented COLAs, the recreation fund shift from the senior center fund to the general fund, also various personnel requests. There's that facility and infrastructure replacement reserve. Talked about the carry forward projects and also new projects such as the city hall and police roofs and new patrol cars, some decision packages, and I talked about recreation, which I'll talk about a little bit later actually too. I highlighted some of the major funds we have. The streets fund, that'll start out at 265,000 in 2023. We're looking at only 25,000 remaining by the end of the biennial budget. That's just due to the That's an issue statewide, and we're working with our state legislative representatives to help fix that issue. Also, we're looking at that at the federal level too, possibly. This is the Creative Arts Fund. Hasn't been a whole lot of change. I mean, it starts at 277. There's various initiatives and projects. It looks like it's going to end at 206 by the end of the biennial period. This is the Civic Improvement Fund. This is where the lodging tax money goes to be used for projects that enhance tourism, and that's required by state law to utilize this money for that. We have a lodging tax advisory committee that looks at grant applications and makes decisions and makes recommendations to the city council. You can see that money started at about $820, and based on my assumption that the amount of money that the council approved for 25 will be the same for 26. Of course, that's subject to change. 561,000 will be the fund balance at the end of 26. Here's the water fund. You can see that the fund balance is drawing down, but that's only because we're transferring funds over to the reserve for replacement fund. The funds that are here now are basically for that purpose, but they should be transferred over to a centralized repair for replacement fund for that purpose, for their purposes. The same with the wastewater funds. You can see that fund balance is changing primarily for that. Well, also water fund, I should go back to water fund. It's not only going down because of that transfer, but we do have to put in that rather large increase from the city of Anacortes, who supplies our wholesale water, in here as well. So that's something we're going to have to discuss next year regarding water rates. So going back to wastewater, the wastewater rates are fine. We're not getting any major increases with that. Solid waste funds, we did receive 22% increase there for our tipping fees for commercial and residential. The fund balance, well, the unrestricted fund balance, I should specify that because we do have other fund balances as well, but the budgeted unrestricted fund balance is decreasing based on that reserve for replacement, but also based on this increase in rates. And this is a fund where we'll have to talk to the city council next year about as well. And then you have the storm drain fund. This one, it's actually increasing, even with money going towards the reserve for replacement. So this one is in good shape. Then you have the marina fund. This is the operating marina fund. There is also a capital marina fund too. And you can see that the beginning fund balance is about 1.7 in 23, goes down to less than 5,000 in 26. That's primarily due to transfers going to the Marina Capital Project Fund for the upcoming marina dredging project, and just other various projects that the marina has scheduled in the long-term capital plan. A couple slides on the long-term capital plan. The total for the biennial period, 2025 to 26, is $63 million. The total for the 6-year period, that's the planning period, is $130 million. It's broken down by general fund projects, marina projects, other intergovernmental fund type projects like streets, for example. Then we have our utility projects like wastewater, solid waste, water projects, and so on. And the funding sources for the capital projects are 25% new funding, which is basically funding from the general fund and utility funds and all of the city's funds. Carry forward projects, which is money that was already budgeted. It just won't be spent by the end of 24, so we're carrying it forward to 25 and 26. And then we have grants. Over here we have grants and debt. So that's projected either secured or unsecured grants, and then future potential debt. And most of that is related to the marina. And finally, we have this slide here. I went over in the previous workshops how we went through the decision packages and the personnel requests and decided some of those to be included in the proposed budget to the council, but there were some that were not included to the proposed budget to the council, and this was one of them. It was for Parks and Recreation. These are, what you see on the screen and also in your backup, which is probably more readable than the screen, these are not included in the budget. The personnel requests all tend to focus in on seasonal and part-time camp counselors, sports officials, and recreation leaders. They align with the 6 priorities there. You'll see on the left, there's numbers 1 through 6. It aligns with those 6 priorities. You have the activity guide is the first priority. You have summer camps, sports leagues, community event, rec and roll, and the teen club. So you can see a row there that says personnel request. That's the cost of the personnel. The next to the left of it is the decision package amount. That's like the operating expenses and the equipment and stuff like that. And then there's a row for revenues. So in the submittals, we put, we ask them, hey, if this is going to generate revenues, how much do you estimate? And show us how you estimate, blah, blah, blah. So they have that in there as well. And if you were to take the revenues and subtract out the 2 expense columns, you'll actually get a positive. That I know it shows a negative number there, but that negative means it's generating revenues based on what was submitted. They also said that the personnel would be scaled to programs. So if the programs, aren't getting the attendance that they need, then the expenses for personnel would probably not be as high as what you see there. So with that concludes my presentation, and I guess it's time for the public hearing portion and city council discussion.
Great, David. Thanks so much for that presentation. At this time, I will open the public hearing, and I will confirm with our city clerk, Julie Nestor, that we've received no public comment on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. No comments were received prior to this meeting. We have one member of the public present who wishes to speak on the biennial budget.
Perfect.
That is Carrie Stuckey.
Hi, I'm Carrie Stuckey, 967 Southwest Silverberry Street in Oak Harbor. I'm here representing the Parks and Recreation Commission, and I wanted to make a comment regarding the proposed budget that's being discussed tonight. Our commission's been working to help the Parks and Recreation Department improve and expand recreation opportunities for our community. We're really excited to see the city's investments in our parks, facilities, and green spaces included in the proposed budget. On page 526 of your agenda packet for tonight's meeting, you'll find those 6 decision package requests that are not currently included in the proposed budget. For example, funding for the activity guide, summer camps, sports leagues, and more. These recreational programs are beneficial for our residents. They give our children opportunities to grow and learn. They give our teenagers positive and constructive outlets. They give our adults a chance to connect with one another, and they just overall improve quality of life. So on behalf of the Parks and Recreation Commission, I would like to ask that the City Council review these requests and consider including them in the biennial budget so that we can continue to expand our recreational opportunities for everyone in our community. So with that, thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Anyone else that is here with us this evening that would like to step up and make comment on this issue? All right, hearing no others, I will close this close this preliminary hearing. We will have the final hearing on the budget at our November 19th meeting, and I will now call upon council for questions and comments on this issue. Councilmember Stuckey.
First question, easy one. I think I know the answer, but I want to confirm. On the Creative Arts Fund, I noticed the revenues are going down. Is that because we've cut utility rates?
Yeah.
Okay. Regarding the Parks and Recreation request, I know they haven't been up to full steam since they started. They just started putting out the utility, the guide was just mailed out. Do we have any way to quantify their success thus far? Not going back to when they started. I mean, that'd be difficult because they're just getting started. But maybe the last few months of programs have they been about where we thought they were going to be, or?
So the Parks and Recreation Department has been providing some of that detail in the department reports that they provide. And so there's been information about how those programs are running and what's happening to them. Brian was unable to be at this meeting tonight because he was at another meeting, but I do have Liz and Craig here who are happy to answer any questions you have about the Parks and Recreation programs.
Please do. I'm just trying to figure out, I understand this is a new program.
Yeah.
And it's not fair to say, hey, you've been around for a year. That's not fair. But at the same time, we're asking for more money. It'd be nice to at least have a few months of data of like, how are things going thus far?
Yes, and those are what we've been working on putting into your monthly council packet, the city administrator report, and I can kind of put those together and show you. But just overall, I mean, on my way over here, I left the center in Oak Harbor, Wright, and usually at this time of day, all our older adult programs are done. It's quiet over there. The lights are off right now. It'd be very dark. It was so full of life over there. There was a group of kids, crafty kids, finishing up their crafts and parents taking them and other kids coming for their art class. Then I hurried and bopped over to the Oak Harbor Elementary where our kids are playing street hockey inside. And again, it's dark outside, the time change. And you walk in and it's full of life and kids running around, kicking, screaming, playing. And so that left me with just this overall feeling of, okay, yes, this is working. But that's just one little point, right? So what I will show you and what we want to show you is the data for the registrations. So overall, what I would say is we are definitely in this learning period of what is it that our community is looking for, what programs are being well attended, which ones aren't. And it's been interesting to see in the data that we have been sharing that some of those programs that were really well attended waned and then come back up. So we're learning the pattern of the community, right? And in part of doing that, our next step is to engage the community in some survey outreaches, right? So we'll have a QR code in our activity guide and work with Maggie to make sure we have a good survey of need. And that's really the next step to make sure that we're hitting those points. So to answer your question of, hey, are we on track? Yes, there's definitely learning. There's definitely, wow, this class was really successful. Signups were great. And then there were others, signups didn't happen, so we didn't run the program, right? So we're definitely in that learning process, but the trend is trending up. Participation activities is trending up. And if you don't mind, if I can just speak to this really just so you understand, right now what we're working with, what we have in the budget to run recreational programs is a 0.9 FTE, right? So that's like 2 part-time people. So if we don't get the decision packages, we will continue to do the programming we have now, but we're capped without any additional staff, right? So if you want to maintain the level, which is not as high as we want to be at all, then that's what would happen without the decision packages. We need those FTEs to grow any more than we are now.
And this might be a question for our finance director. I don't remember the name of it, but we approved a grant request recently for an outdoor grant. If we got that, wouldn't that be something that this would fall under?
Was that the No Child Left
No.
Outside?
Yes, that's
No
yes.
child left inside. We want to leave them outside. Don't leave them inside. So I can speak to that in saying the funds that we've asked for that grant would be to run additional recreation opportunities that's not included here. Those grant funds are very specific for outdoor programming, so we built a program specifically for those grant funds. So in particular, what I would want to highlight is the summer camp, right? So the summer camp that we're asking for here is really the opportunity for kids to be somewhere safe and engaged while their parents continue to work throughout the summer. So kids would repeat this summer camp week after week, and it's a basic run summer camp. The one that we put for in the grant, the Would Be Outdoor Ready program, it is a specialty camp that someone would be able to participate for 1 week, but not multiple weeks. It would be free of charge, covered by those grant funds. They would come, they would go through that. It would be really awesome. They're going to engage in some really great extra special things, right? But it wouldn't be a replacement for this summer camp. This summer camp is needed for our families in the community to have somewhere for their kids to be every week in the summer. So a 10-week program.
And the money in there for the activity guide, is
Yeah.
that separate from the activity guide you've been doing?
So we've been no, this is the activity guide. This is how much it would cost, right? And we've really been just doing it from the budget we have, and if we're going to continue, we need funds for it, right? Like, it wasn't budgeted for, so it was like, okay, well, we saved a little here, we can do this once, we can make this happen, but there wasn't enough in the base budget to include it. And so and David can speak more to this, but originally when we received our base budget, it was very similar to our senior services budget, right? Prior to our recreation budget. And then David did say, okay, yep, I see you need a little increase there. But really what the base budget is the base budget of what we are currently doing and nothing beyond that.
I suppose I'm cautiously optimistic, and it's very much
Yeah.
like starting a new business. I mean, you're going to try some things that won't work. You try to try some things that aren't work.
Yeah.
Our Parks and Rec director, I think he knows his stuff. He said, this is what I need, and you give me what I need, and this is what the results will be, and I respect that. Obviously, there becomes a point where it's like, okay, we gave you what you need. If the results aren't there, we got to cut it. But at this point, especially not having the activity guides budgeted for, that's something we have to have out. So I'm optimistic but cautious.
I appreciate that for sure. We're feeling really the same way. And it has been neat, without any kind of true data points, but just the feedback about the activity guide. We've noticed increase in participation in different areas, whether it be, our holiday market vendor fair that we do. Our vendors have the vendor space has booked out far earlier than it ever has, right? And we're anticipating that to be a bigger event because it's in the activity guide. So we're seeing these returns on that investment as that's getting out there and known. So we're excited about the trajectory of it for sure.
And what do we always hear? There's not enough for kids to do. And to provide something that can work as, I don't want to say as daycare, but in a way it is, that could be seen as a positive. So
Yeah.
I appreciate your time.
Of course.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to put you on the spot, if you don't mind. The 6 Parks and Rec items that aren't in your proposed budget, I'm curious about your rationalization for that, how you selected those, what are your thoughts on why they weren't included?
Yeah, absolutely. So the items, with the exception of the activity guide, I'm a little bit lost there. I was thinking that was something different, and that can be a different conversation. But those other programs are all expansions of programs. They're not in existence now, and we didn't have enough concrete data for you as council to see what you were expecting based upon past council minutes and meetings and what your expectations were around revenues. So my feeling was you weren't going to be very happy if we were bringing additional programs to you when we hadn't really perfected what we had already put into place. So those were conversations that we had with Brian directly. We asked for some type of plan, what that looked like, what the plan was for these. There wasn't anything concrete in place at that time, so it was really hard for me to bring that forward to you guys and ask you guys to approve that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I suspected it was something like that. That makes a lot of sense. The David Goldman, the additional funds that are being requested for specifically the Parks and Rec program, where would that come from? If we chose to add that to our budget, where would that money come from?
Well, every one of these well, not everyone, but as a whole, the projected revenues will be covering the expenses. So if this was to be added to the budget, I'd add the expenses, but then I'd also add offsetting revenues. So,
Understood, but we have to have the instructors in this, like, we have to pay for the thing before the thing happens
Oh,
and we
yeah.
get paid for it. So where would that come
it would just come from the general fund balance,
from? Okay.
yeah.
Those are my only 2 questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, Councilmember Wittgenstein.
Sticking to the theme of Parks and Rec, I'm all in favor of making sure this gets put into the budget. My main reasoning is overall mental health and physical activity of our youth provides for a stronger future for Oak Harbor, which is really what we're trying to do. And it's going to take, like any kind of thing we're doing, starting a new business, takes time to build it up. And I don't even know that, you know, a year or 2 years is enough time to really get a good feel. I think this is a kind of a long-term asset to the city, just like our marina is in the long run. Because it's investing in our community, it's investing in our kids, it's investing in our seniors as well. So if there's a way we can make that happen, I'm in favor of putting it on the budget.
Thank you, Councilmember Wittgenstein. Councilmember Arms?
I agree with Councilmember Wittgenstein. I think it's a great service. I know my husband's there on Friday, faithfully. Geez, we could not forget that day. So I think it's a great program. I think it's something the community really needs. And especially like during the summer when parents are trying to figure out where they're going to put the kids, and the kids get to do something fun, they get to share something, they get to learn something. So I think this is all going to be a great addition to Parks and Recs. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And then does Councilmember Hoffmeyer want to add anything to this discussion as well? I can't see.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mayor. The chairwoman for the Parks Board, described it very eloquently, and Liz, as always, good job. I definitely support this as well. Thank you.
Perfect. So we're just carrying this forward to the next meeting, so we need to call for a vote or a motion or anything, unless, are you looking for direction to include this?
Yeah, so basically, if you make a motion to include this, then I'll make sure it gets included for the final budget.
Okay, so yes, Councilmember Wittgenstein.
I'll make a motion to include the Parks and Recreation amendment here that they have for us to be in the next biennial budget.
Second.
So we have a motion to include the additional programming costs as presented. Are we going to call this like an exhibit or something? What are we going to refer this to? Okay, that's fine.
I mean, it's in the presentation and the prior staff reports.
Okay, I just don't know, do we want to have an actual dollar amount to include in there though, Julie, for records?
I mean, okay. So the actual dollar amount will be, we got to add those two together.
I don't want to get called out for this.
I have to take out my calculator.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
97416 plus 113450 equals $210,866 of new expenses.
All right, so we have a motion to include additional programming for Parks and Recreation to the tune of $210,866, presented by Councilmember Wittgenstein, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Seconded by Councilmember Hoffmeyer. All right. Any further discussion on this issue? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Sorry, just some quick closing comments. The Carrie Stuckey used a word in her comment, and the word was investment. And I think that is, to me, that's the bottom line. I mean, we could consider it an expense, but I think investment is the word. When we established the department and the program, we said we will give you time to establish this and expect certain performance. But I think we're definitely still in the getting established time period, and it's to hear that those programs are well attended is really encouraging. And with the fate of the North Libby Pool Parks levy really kind of hanging in the balance right now, that's until they publish the next vote count. This is all something that I'm keeping in the back of my head, because these are resources that our community might need even more desperately tomorrow than they do today. So I appreciate the mayor's prudence and consideration when bringing this forward. But anyway, that's why, just thinking out loud, I think it's an investment, and that's why I would support adding the 6 programs and, like Stuckey said, seeing where they go.
Thank you for your thoughtful comments, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
I did think of 2 more questions, and if someone from Parks and Rec is able to answer it, that's great. If you need to defer to Brian. So when you do these programs, because what I don't want is council getting to the nitty gritty of, these programs that aren't big revenue or expense. And I don't want us to be like, well, this made it, but this one did. That's not what we should be doing. So I'm curious, from your guys' perspective, where do you measure something as a success versus, yeah, let's not do it next time? Like, what's the threshold? I mean, is it break-even dollar amount? Is it attendance? Like, how do you choose? If you did this, what would you look at next year and be like, yeah, the sports league didn't quite make it? What's the threshold?
Yeah, it's definitely a combination of things. Number one, like if did it meet its cost recovery goal? If the program was 100% cost recovery, did it meet that, right? And then that plays into attendance, because if you have the attendance there that you're planning on, you have that cost recovery. So those are really key indicators. And then also just feedback, right, from the community. And that's what we've been taking, because there's been a program that we've started and it was good, but we got feedback of how they might want it different times of day, and we change it too. So it really is it meeting the cost recovery goal set for that specific program? And a lot of that is the attendance, because we base the cost recovery on a minimum of attendance and so forth there. And then just is the program continuing? And so in my years of doing recreation programming, right, specific for older adults, but still recreation programming, that's what happens. And sometimes programs have a lifespan, and then they kind of end and phase out as different groups of people kind of come through and experience it, and then they move on to other things. And then there are some programs that just sustain and have always been, just a constant. And so I can imagine that that's what we're going to see with our youth and adult programs as well.
And my last question is, in regards to North Whitby Pool Parks and Rec, because I've made comments in the past of loving to see one Parks and Rec. And part of that is because I see some, for lack of a better term, competition, right? If the pool was just the pool, then there wouldn't really be competition, but they also do sports and things like that. What steps do you take to make sure you're not directly competing? And are there any steps to differentiate this is a city event versus a North Whitby Pool Parks and Rec event? Because I don't think a lot of people understand that there's a difference.
Right.
So are you making steps to make sure that, hey, they're doing football, are we making sure not to do football at the same time, at the same days? Like, what are you doing in that regard?
Yeah, we definitely are making a concerted effort to not offer similar programs, right? Like, they have a great basketball program happening, cool, the kids are getting basketball, that's not something we need to do. And so we've gone in another direction. So we're definitely just aware of what they're doing. I would like to say I have a good working relationship with their executive director, with Jay. She's a great, fabulous professional and good at what she does. And so having those open conversations is easy, right? And so there's plenty of opportunities that they're offering and doing a great job at what they do, and we will offer different opportunities and do a great job at what we do. But I feel like that was like a two-part question. I'm sorry, what was the second part?
What are you doing to not compete? And then are you doing anything to differentiate?
Yes,
I mean, does the public care that one's the city of North Whitby Pool Parks and Rec? I mean...
No, and honestly, like, to be completely honest, that's something that we've been experiencing. A lot of the great things that we're doing, people have thought we're North Whitby Pool Parks Rec, right? And we're like, oh, nope, see this city of Oak Harbor. And so I get it. And it really, to me, it does come down to the message that, like, our community, to them, and it's not important who's doing it, it's that it's happening, right? And, like, I get that they just want the thing to happen, and so we'll make sure it happens. But I do think it's so important that when we are doing things, that they're aware that it is City of Oak Harbor Parks and Recreation. And that is why we've made a lot of concerted effort to step into branding specifically for our Parks and Recreation, right? Like our Harbor Your Happiness, Harbor Your Creativity, getting that out on everything that we're doing, having the bright yellow shirts with that on it to differentiate and start. It's going to take people time, right? This is where Ollie comes in. Ollie's going to be at our events, right? Our mascot, and it's going to take time for people to understand, because we're the new kids on the block, and anytime they've heard Parks and Rec has been North Whitby Parks and Rec, right? But we experienced that. It was super fun. Craig and I were at the Oak Harbor Public Schools Trunk or Treat, and we're standing right there next to our sign with City of Oak Harbor Parks and Recreation, and people would come up and say, oh, you guys are great, we love the pool. Oh, no, sorry, that's not us, but we'll let them know that you love them, that kind of thing. So we realized that there's definitely some non-clarity among the community, and we'll do our best part. And I know, we have a great communications team in our administrative team, and we'll work with Maggie and come up with some great ideas to continue making sure that we're visible as the city of Oak Harbor.
And we have the auditor.
And we will have the honor.
All
We're
right.
so excited.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, so anyone else? And before I call for the vote, just to be fully transparent, David, this was the only major difference in change, correct?
Yes, except for the two I talked about on that earlier slide.
Yes.
This was the only
Yeah,
major change.
so I just wanted to make sure that this was, okay. So we have motion, we have second, we have had further discussion. Now I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, passes unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. All right, we're going to move on to contracts and agreements. And up first is a professional services agreement with Better City LLC for economic analysis and strategy plan. Introducing this topic this evening is our Development Services Director, David Kuhl.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Tonight, we have a big day. This is the Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan. This is something that council has wanted for a long time. So we have a consultant ready to go, and this particular company is a company called Better City LLC. A little bit of history. ARPA funding has been able to deliver an economic development program for us for the last 2 years. And the funding for that, of course, is running out at the end of December. So you went out and did an RFP back in July, and we had 6 firms that have responded to this particular RFP. Now, these 6 firms are really good. I mean, we got some really powerful companies to respond to this. 2 of them are based in Seattle, companies that I've worked with before. So Better City was actually the company that stood out in front of everybody after our scoring. So we found that Better City has a different approach that tailors their approach to what the city wants. And so what I did was I reached out to Leesburg, Virginia. It was a community that they had listed as a company or as a place that they had done business. I called the Economic Development Coordinator in Leesburg, and I heard nothing but glowing reviews from Leesburg, Virginia. So we decided to do an interview with Better City, and we talked to them via Zoom, and we really found, we liked the way that they came back to us with a scope of work that was revised to help us get what we want. And so this won't just be a plan that sits on the shelf. This will be a plan that becomes an active document where people on the staff need to take certain steps, people in the community need to do certain things, and it will be an ongoing living document. In addition to that, Better City has proposed a method of coming back to help us, to be able to go not only from the plan, but to actually put things in place for us. An example of what they did for Alamogordo, New Mexico, after all the meetings they had there and the data analysis, it showed that the film industry was something that they should do. And so that's exactly what Better City did, was they came back and helped the community go find that industry. And that has been very successful for them. And so that's what Better City can do for us. I'd like to thank Councilmember Marshall, who helped evaluate the scoring of the companies, and particularly Mayor Pro Tem Heisen. She helped us not only with the scoring, but with the interviews. So the council has been very supportive of economic development, and we are really excited to be able to move this forward. Jason Godfrey, the principal with Better City, is here tonight online, and he has some things to say. So this will be your motion when you're ready, and Jason, go ahead.
Excellent. Well, thank you, David. It's really an honor to be with you this evening. I assume you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. We are a little bit different. than other firms. And I think we really differentiate ourselves in that, A, we focus on smaller communities, recognizing that the smaller communities have greater needs typically, and greater needs and less resources. And secondly is that this small, we focus on implementation. So it's not just about how do we, here's a shiny plan, good luck, but how do we help you move forward with that and implement it? And so in our interview, when we spoke with David and especially Mayor Pro Tem Heisen, we were really excited when we started to discuss what the needs were, where they're at, to see the flexibility of the community and the desire to move forward. It wasn't just about, okay, we got an empty space on the shelf, how can we fill it? But how can we take what's already happened? We've already had a lot of the community engagement. We've got more community engagement happening now. How do we not just continue to go back and talk and solicit more input? How do we move forward? How do we take this to the next level? And we had a really productive conversation, I felt like, and we're able to come up with to modify the scope of work, to customize it to the needs of the community. And so that's what we had an amended proposal, and as David mentioned, it's really focused on, let's take everything we possibly can from what's already been done. Let's leverage that, not reinvent the wheel or ask the same questions to 30 people, but just take what we've learned and say, how can we, prioritize that, synthesize it, and then work on implementation. So put the efforts less on the learning and the modeling, and talk more about implementation. So very excited to have the opportunity to work with David and his team, and really impressed by the vision that was exhibited by your leaders. And I think this is a great opportunity to really have impact, and that's what we're all about.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank Steve McCaslin for his effort in helping us with this project.
Is that everything?
That's it.
All right, so I will confirm with Julie that we've received no public comments.
That's correct, Mayor. No public comments were received.
All right, and I would like to ask those present with us here this evening if anyone has any comment at this time that they would like to step forward and share with us. All right, hearing none, I will call upon council for their questions and comments at this time.
I'll jump in real quick.
Oh, yes, Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, I think many of city councils have had the goal of intentional economic development, and it seems that we all miss it by a little. So a big thanks to the administration here for retooling this a little, and I really support this and hope that maybe this is finally one of the magic bullets. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
So I'm hearing a lot of the right things, because I think what we've kind of said is we don't want one more thing with just reports of here's what we need. I do like a steering committee. That's kind of something I've been asking about before in the form of a commission, but this works even better. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. This is a plan for economic development. Can I get one tangible example of what that might look like? This city, we told this city they should do this, and it did this. Just so I can get a concept of what these deliverables could look like.
Good question. As you look through their proposal, you saw a steering committee that's going to be formed. There'll be data analysis that'll come out of it, public input as to what the public wants to see, and from all those efforts, a gap analysis will be developed. That'll be a gap analysis that'll tell us where we are today with all the planning efforts we've done before, with where we can go down the road. So one thing that we should be able to come up with is a vision. What do we want to see happen in Oak Harbor? Do we view tourism as the main thing to happen? Do we view expanded retail? Do we see recreation being the main thing here? So we'll come up with a vision for what Oak Harbor should be. Now that's also in conjunction with the comprehensive plan, which tends to do the same thing, and that's a process we're going through right now. But this is strictly economic. And we really hope that this is going to be the solution that people have been waiting for.
Yeah, I was cautious when you first were saying a steering committee, listening to the public. I mean, that's all great. It's still that, to me, a tangible would have been, we should place this, we should find a way to get this strip mall at this place to attract these people. I'm trying to think in those kind of terms, which obviously that's super broad. But I did like, as you kind of tied it to the end, well, that could be tourism. Okay, I think we can agree Langley thrives on tourism. What do they do to attract tourists? So I can follow it with that. It's not necessarily structured in infrastructure, but can also be a mindset of what way do we want to control things. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. The participating in the interview process was really interesting and really encouraging. I was especially impressed with the firm's ability to basically kind of modify things on the fly. I mean, they heard loud and clear that we don't want another pretty plan to put on a shelf. Implementation is key. And we didn't want to, council had discussed things like, why are we paying somebody else to gather, demographic information when we already have that information? And they, they said, cool, if you have that information, give it to us, we'll look at it, and that we'll just be further along in the process. And they were extremely flexible and I think got the vision right away. And I was encouraged and impressed by that. I do want to thank Steve McCaslin, our Economic Development Coordinator, for participating. He was really helpful through that whole process. And yeah, you're a class act, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else for the good of the order? All right, hearing nothing else, I would entertain a motion. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, sorry.
I move to approve the professional services agreement with Better City LLC for an economic development strategy and action plan.
Second.
We have a motion as presented by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Stuckey. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Oh, no, he was raising his. Sorry, Councilmember Hoffmeyer, I didn't see your hand. All right, it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, next up for contracts and agreements is professional services agreement, contract amendment with Petite Incorporated. And here to talk about that with us is our Development Services Director, David Kuhl.
Thank you once again, Mayor and Council. This is a professional services agreement with Petite Engineering. This is a company that we have had on board for a long time, and they are the company that did the Friend Marsh project for us. As you recall, we expanded that contract a little while back to add $40,000 to the expense column to be able to do the Friend Marsh project. And so this is simply an amendment. All we're hoping to do is take this contract and extend it for another year. We didn't think that we would need the contract this long, but we believe we probably will. What they do is they analyze wetlands and floodplains and shorelines and critical areas. So they do a number of different scientific type projects for us. They have staff in Everett and Anacortes, and so this is a company that we've used for a long time. As we can see, the contract was first started on October 15th. And we just want to extend it for one more year. And this will help us to develop strategies to mitigate sea level rise and a number of other things we're working on at the comprehensive plan level relating to the environment. The ongoing contract goes to October 15th of '25, and this is your recommended motion.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Kuhl. I will confirm with Julie that we have received no public comment on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. No public comment was received.
And I will request if there is any additional public comment from those gathered here this evening. Hearing none, I will call upon council for their questions or comments at this time. No questions? All right. With no questions, no comments, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the professional services agreement. I was on the wrong screen.
There it is. It's on the screen up there.
Oh, I move to approve the amendment to the professional services agreement with Pertite Incorporated for natural resource analysis services.
We have a motion as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Wittgenstein. Before I call for a vote, is there any further discussion on this issue? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Other items for consideration on our agenda tonight is the 2025 legislative priorities, and here to introduce that topic is our City Administrator, Sabrina Combs.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm just going to wait for Tim to pull that up. So it is the time of year when I come and talk to you about your legislative priorities. So the Executive Office identifies the list, and we present that to you, and then we offer that up for discussion and/or approval. So the process is we review current legislative priorities that we had for 2024. We also looked at the priorities set by the Association of Washington Cities, and we discussed the priorities from the Island County Council of Governments, known as the COG, so that we understand what other municipalities are doing. So for the AWC, their list of priorities are focused on fiscal sustainability, behavioral health treatment, capacity, housing supply, public safety, and infrastructure investment. For the COG, we heard from the group itself that there was public records reform, climate resiliency, affordable workforce housing, PFAS cleanup, ferries, childcare, and public safety. Now, each of the cities, or municipalities, I should say, each submitted something as well, and so we did include that in the packet for you. So with that, the list that we came up with for the City of Oak Harbor includes emergency services. We modified that a little bit just to focus both on fire and police and in general overall. We also wanted to add the element of talking about a regional training facility in Island County, the flexible real estate excise tax, and what we're talking about here is the REIT and reestablishing the flexibility that was available during COVID, and so that would allow us to do some of our facility improvements. Then housing and childcare availability, that was modifying housing availability to include childcare because that is something of a concern for our community. And so we wanted to make sure that was included. Indigent defense costs, we have submitted a letter to the Supreme Court for their upcoming discussion and also sent that to the Association of Washington Cities. However, we wanted to make sure that is something that we are continuing to work on because we are considered a rural community and it is harder to get those people out here who are lawyers who can provide those services. We also find that we're seeing an increase in the conflict cases that we have. Additionally, we want to talk about, in general, investing in our community. That's about our infrastructure. That's also about the marina, the growth that we're being asked to do, and having to make improvements to State Route 20, our ferry system, and all of those things. So just including that as one area. Then the property tax cap, we've had that on since last year, and just we're continuing to talk about that. Public records management, this has been a topic we've brought up before. It's not so much that we don't want to provide those records to the public, but we want to be clear about the costs associated with doing that. In fact, sometimes we find staff does the work, we spend the time invested in getting it done, and nobody picks up the records. So we are expending those costs. We also now have costs for body-worn cameras, video, other things that we have to address as well. So we're trying to make sure we're covering that and talking about it. And then ratepayer impacts, we are just overall looking at what we can do as a city to address that. And I know you as a council have been doing that, so we just want to continue to talk about that. And then, of course, as always, supporting Naval Air Station Whidbey Island and the ways that we can do that. So that is our list. So what we want to do as next steps is receive your input. If it is something that you want to approve, we did provide the resolution. If you do have comments, we can get those comments from you and include those, and I did have it pre-scheduled with the city clerk so that we could come back on November 19th if you'd prefer. And then once that's approved, we would add it to our legislative priorities on the city website, and then we send it out to our legislators. So with that, I just want to thank you and hear your comments.
Thank you, Sabrina. I will confirm with Julie that we received no public comment on this matter.
That's correct, Mayor. No public comments were received.
I would like to ask those here with us this evening if you have any public comment on this issue. No? Okay. Right? All right. With that, I will turn it over to council for their questions or comments at this time. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
You mentioned providing what the other municipalities had submitted. In our packet, there's an agenda for the COG, but there's no content.
I apologize. That might have just been an error in sliding documents. I can get you that after this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You said that, and I was looking for it and didn't see it. Thank you for adding childcare as that's an issue that's at crisis levels, and appreciate that that's being addressed. And the investment in our community, that could be Parks and Rec, that could be infrastructure, that could be long-term planning. So it is a really broad category. I'm not sure. Once we start kind of pulling things out to bring attention to them, then the document just gets real busy and the list gets too long. So I appreciate staff's efforts to condense as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councilmember Stuckey.
Hasn't the state legislature for a couple of years tried to address the property tax cap?
I'm sorry, can you say that again? Sorry.
So hasn't our state legislature looked at the property tax cap a couple times and voted no every time?
I'll let David Goldman respond to that.
So last session, there was a bill to increase it to 3%, but it died. So that didn't really, I don't think it moved out of committee. I'm not sure about prior to that, though, but I do remember that during the short session, there was a bill for that. And, there might be another bill coming up similar to that for the long session coming up, so.
So is this one of those items that AWC basically wants to get all the cities to put that on there so they have a united front to push for that?
Yes, it is, but it's also something that when I went to the district meeting, all of us were talking about. It's one of those items that would help. So as everybody's looking at ways to fund their services, deal with their infrastructure, it's just one of those options that would be available.
May not be popular, but I would like that off. I remember last year we discussed that, and that was a sticking point. And one thing I remember at that time, it was suggested 3%. And it was kind of one of those things that, well, if we allow 3%, and I understand that it has tied to inflation, it just becomes automatic. I mean, case in point, we did our 1%, and it mentioned a couple times the standard 1%. It's always been done. So if it then became 3%, let's be honest, you can say it gives us the ability to, and I don't mean you, I mean in general. You can say it gives us the ability to do 3%, but it's going to become automatic. Let's be honest. So for me personally, I don't want to put that on there just because AWC wants to do it. I see it just continuing to go down. I personally would not be in support of that staying on there this time around.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Anyone else? Yes, Councilmember Arms.
I agree with Councilmember Stuckey. I mean, things haven't settled down enough. I know it's important to our city. I get it. I really think it is. But the problem is, because we know how it goes, once you put it up, I mean, everybody will be having an issue. Things just haven't cooled down enough. People are struggling. They're having a hard time. I just don't think this is a good time to put it in right now. I just would like to see it out. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Totally disagree, respectfully. Just because it's not limited to 1% doesn't mean, we're the ones making the decision. It doesn't mean that it would be automatic. We don't need to raise it if we don't want to. The thing with the 1% is that there are other cities in the state with other needs, and so that amount might fluctuate. And what we're asking the legislature to do is allow cities to make that decision for themselves. That's what we're asking. And so the decision is still ours. We still have parameters. So that would make it, instead of 50 cents a month, even if it was literally tripled, $1.50 a month, it's not, I'm not assuming that an increase would be automatic, but if we are in a time of some kind of crisis, if we have some kind of natural disaster, if we have a huge infrastructure issue, it gives us the option. And I think that that flexibility is important because, I mean, stuff is increasing in cost at a rate of way more than 1% a year. And so at this rate, we're kind of barely limping along. So I'm not necessarily saying we would automatically go over the 1%, but just because we have the ability to doesn't necessarily mean we automatically would. I disagree with that sentiment. So I'm in favor of asking the legislature for some flexibility. I think that that would be helpful, not just to Oak Harbor, but to lots of other cities.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else? Councilmember Wittgenstein, Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
Yeah, first of all, Sabrina, this is one of the many areas that you really shine. Thanks for all your work on this. I love it. With the property tax cap, I'll go ahead and back up Councilmember Heisen on that one. I think there just happens to be times where it is a necessity. One other thing, I love to see the Naval Air Station Whidbey Island stuff on there, even the logo that's with it. Love it. I'm gonna hope, for Oak Harbor's sake, and I think the administration's probably already working on this. I'm gonna hope that our new governor governs a little different than he prosecuted or handled law with regards to MAS Whidbey and the Growler. I would love the administration to be able to build a relationship there, and who knows, maybe down the road I could vote for the individual, but I was not able to do so this time. And other than that, like I said, I really like it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Marshall, welcome. Did you have anything on this?
Well, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. I do. I have the same issue that I had last time with the legislative priorities, and that's the property tax. Increasing that. Once my argument's the same as it was before. Once we start taking it, we'll continue to take it. I know this is kind of an AWC priority, but it doesn't seem to be necessarily a priority for our community, and so I just am still not in favor of it. I mean, I think our residents are taking a lot of hits right now. I know the school's going to be asking for a property tax increase, in February. And so if it's not super important to our community, then I would, I want to support AWC, but at the same time, I'd almost prefer to see more of a local priority as opposed to a state priority. So
okay.
That's my only 2 cents.
Thank you.
You got it. Yes, Councilmember Wittgenstein.
Kind of felt like I had to jump in. I'm on the fence. I get the need for the increase in revenue for cities over across the state as well. I also get the need for being concerned about our constituents and their pocketbooks as well. I lean towards, I know it's an AWC priority. I don't know that it needs to be an Oak Harbor priority. That's kind of where I'm sitting with it right now, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to provide you with some context. Mayor Pro Tem provided a comment before you walked in that addressed the fact that this priority allows cities across the state to utilize the up to 3%. It's not necessarily going to be us wanting to do so. And just because you have the ability to go to 3% doesn't necessarily mean you're going to. You guys still hold that power and the right to make that decision. So it doesn't mean it's going to be an automatic thing every year. It's something that you have to vote on and decide on. So keeping that into perspective into your decision making, I just wanted you to have that piece of information. Did I paraphrase that fine? Okay. And then the last thing that I was going to add is one of the other items on here is I don't see, oh, there it is, childcare. We recently had a citizen inquiry and come in and met with me, and I worked with David Kuhl on this, and we started looking into our local municipal code and found that our municipal code was more restrictive than what the RCWs were. So we're working to revise that or bring that forward for revisement, correct?
David was able to make an adjustment for that because of the
perfect.
state code.
Okay.
But it is something that we have looked at as staff.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're already working towards those things to enable a new daycare to open right here in our own community. So it is something that we're prioritizing and looking at too as an administration, just so you know that. So with that, yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
I smile because I remember this exact debate with these exact points last time. Are you looking like for a formal vote?
So this is the thing, if you want me to change it, then I'll come back on the 19th. We've drafted the resolution and everything in case this actually met your needs, and was ready for moving forward. So that's up to you as a council.
Well, because it seems fairly split, can I put out a proposal and bring it to a vote then?
It's your council, so.
Okay. I move that we adopt the 2025 legislative priorities with removing the property tax cap.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I'll second that, yeah, so we can discuss it. But, so you're proposing that we adopt the priorities tonight with the exception of the property, so it will not come back to us on November 19th? Okay, I just want to make sure that's what you meant to do. Okay. I'd be curious to hear from Mr. Goldman. David, put you on the spot. Obviously, yeah, I'm in favor of allowing some flexibility. I'm not gonna just operate under the assumption that anything's gonna be automatic. But in terms of our priorities, as our financial person, is this something in your professional opinion, and I know you hate being asked for opinions, does this rise to the level of being one of our top 10 priorities, or would it just be nice to have?
I'm not feeling very well. I think I have to go home. No, I've been trying,
You're more than welcome to not answer that.
I actually had an idea
Yeah.
about 5 minutes ago. So I've worked in different states. And in 2008, the state where I worked at took a look at property tax increases. And they adopted something which, I'm not sure if Oak Harbor is the only council split like this and having these debates. It might be happening throughout the state, right? And this other state that I worked at came up with something that might work. Maybe if we do the 1%, it's just a typical vote, right? But if you want to go between 1% and 3%, maybe it requires a supermajority of the council. You know, or something like that. That was something that was implemented in a different state about 16 years ago, and it seemed to work. It seemed to satisfy the people who were a little satisfy the folks who were saying that if we really have an issue, if something's going on with our local economy, maybe an employer left and we're hurting, or something happened and we need to go to that level this particular year or the year after, then it gives an opportunity for a supermajority to say yes. But that's just an idea. I'd have to talk to the AWC to see if that would be something they would want to even entertain. But as far as our priorities go, it's hard for me to say which one of these is a higher priority than the other, because they're all very important priorities. Yeah. You know, having the flexibility of being able to bring in additional funding in a time of need, if the city council decides to do so, we can do our own thing. We can put in our own city code, whatever the state passes, that we'd have to do a supermajority just for Oak Harbor. Maybe we can do that. We can tie ourselves like that to be a little bit more, but if you need it. So there's no guarantee, you know, that we're going to come up every year and go 3%, 3%, 3%. If inflation is only 1.5,
Right.
maybe that year we ask for 1.5. You know, I'm just.
Thank you. I know, yeah, I don't love being put on the spot, but I appreciate your feedback. Yeah, yeah, like I said, I'm in favor of the flexibility. If the council doesn't want to go over 1%, then we don't have, you can vote no. So, yeah, I like the priorities as they are.
So in full transparency, and then I'll call on you, Councilmember Wittgenstein, there have been many discussions between Finance Director and Deputy City Administrator Goldman and I, as well as with other AWC officials. And this wasn't just about our city, but it's the ability to give the autonomy to all cities throughout the state. So, and I think it also fits us while we may be in a 1%, it's a different circumstance down the road. Again, it's all about whatever your need is and where you are. It doesn't necessarily mean it's an automatic thing. So again, that's just to give you more perspective of conversations that we've been having behind the scenes and why. But I also gives us options in the event that we're faced with different times. So yes, Councilmember Wittgenstein.
Better turn the mic on,
Thank you.
so we can be heard. Do we have any whispers of this potentially even, I mean, I know AWC is really hoping for it as a legislative priority. Do we have any kind of a inkling of whether or not it's going to be in the session?
You know, I didn't hear, I know that they're going to be bringing it up as part of their conversations. I agree with the mayor on that. I know when I went to the district meeting in Bellingham for, I believe it's District 14, we had this conversation and several cities were talking about it. So I think several cities are going to have it on their list. I have not seen that specifically because everybody's in this process of building their legislative priorities right now.
Yeah, I think I was more leaning towards trying to understand whether or not we had any legislators willing to bring it forward again, if we knew of any whisperings of that, because that's just kind of an idea. I mean, they kind of know, even those that got reelected or in the process of coming, they have an idea of what they're going to bring forward in the next session.
I would say when COG met with Representative Shavers and Representative Paul, these were some of the conversations that were talked about, is how are we funding these things, some of the tools and mechanisms that we needed, the infrastructure work across our county, and what we needed to address. So this is definitely one of those topics that they are aware is coming, because several of us mentioned these in previous conversations and during that meeting as things that we were looking at as part of our priorities that we were putting before our councils.
So in that meeting with the COG, yes, they are aware that this is something that we as a county as well as the city felt was a priority. It was communicated to them. And then at the all mayors conference that I attended last month, this was a unanimous vote pretty much from everyone in the room that this is just, it's not necessarily an automatic, it's just something that's an option on the table for them in the event that we need to pursue.
W essentially, or the WAC surrounding property tax caps, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand the desire to support other communities, and I think if we take this off, it doesn't preclude us from being able to take advantage of that property tax increase should it pass at the state level. I mean, we still will have that option. But my understanding of these legislative priorities, it is the priorities for the city of Oak Harbor, not necessarily for that of the state. And our priorities, and the one that kind of is missing, in my opinion, is our marina. I mean, we are trying to find a way to fund our marina. It should be, in my opinion, a legislative priority, a way that, you know, that they should be aware that we're going to be asking for money, we're going to be asking for help, we're going to be asking for something. And so, for me, the marina is much more of an Oak Harbor legislative priority than is the property tax cap.
So, Councilmember Marshall, I will say that invest in our community, I think you came in after I went through that.
I
Marina
did.
is listed and highlighted as part of that.
Okay.
So we're talking about that in conjunction with State Route 20 improvements,
Okay.
the ferry system, things like that.
Okay. So skip the last part of what I said, but the first part of what I said still applies, that it is more of an Oak Harbor, and we still could take advantage if the state passes.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Councilmember Stuckey.
I was going to say something close to that effect, minus the marina. I mean, remember, these are legislative priorities. These are asks. These aren't often things under our direct control. Whether Oak Harbor has their name on this or not, I'm willing to bet would make next to zero tangible impact. I mean, I think it's good that we're scrutinizing this so hard, because then it will look less like an automatic if it does go through and does come our way. So this is a good discussion to have. I still stand by my thoughts of having it not on there, but that's why we bring it to a vote.
All right, So to recap, we've had discussion, but we had a motion on the floor. We have it seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. We've had discussion. Is there any more discussion on this issue before I call for a vote? And I will reiterate what the motion is, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Yes, Councilmember. Everyone except for Councilmember Hoffmeyer has weighed in. Councilmember Hoffmeyer, do you have anything to add here?
I do, just real quick, you know, it's been an AWC priority for quite a while. We know that there are some communities that need it. It was very close to passing last time. I think it was 1 or 2 votes away. I do think that by the city of Oak Harbor having our name on it, I do think it allows our 2 state reps and our, you know, senator that are in swing districts, I do think that it gives them some cover to support it, and it may very well be what helps it pass. So I think anytime the city of Oak Harbor can have their name on a legislative priority, I do think it actually makes a very big difference right now.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Wigginstein.
Okay, so back to the motion that we're dealing with right here in front of us, because that's really what we're going to be discussing. I'm not in favor of passing the motion as presented because that doesn't give our staff any time to come back with anything in 2 weeks, right? That just locks our legislative stuff in place, and we already have a placeholder for it in 2 weeks. It sounds like we're pretty split with just removing the property tax cap or keeping it, which is really what I think is the discussion topic on this thing. So as the motion was presented, I wouldn't be able to support it at this point. So just to put that out there.
Can I just ask a question just to make sure? Because I'm just trying to do this in the most efficient way. Are you just not able to vote because you're in disagreement with that one issue, or do you have other changes that you would like to see made to the legislative priorities?
No, I don't have other changes necessarily. I'm on the fence with this one. So.
Okay, so what can we do? Are you wanting, or is there an expectation from staff?
No, I would like it. I think we're rushing it. So
okay, that's fine. I just want to. I'm good with that. That's fine.
We're already ready to go.
I'm just trying to make sure if there's more you want us to get to.
No.
Okay.
I would rather us just take it in the due course that we've got planned right now versus feeling rushed on it right now. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
I don't remember if you were on council last time we hashed this out, but for context, we kind of have a similar thought, and the change that was made then is it was suggesting the 3%, and then it was changed to something more vague, kind of like it is now. I get where you're coming from. I'm just trying to understand what sort of modification you would think there, because more than likely, they would just come back with either this minus the property tax cap or the exact same document again. So if there's something you're looking for, some direction, I'm all for holding it off, but as it stands, I was assuming you would just come back with this, or you would come back without the property tax, depending upon how the vote goes.
Yeah, that's typically what we do. We take the feedback and do that. And it sounded like the way you were headed in the middle of a vote.
Right.
Is there would be some direction to me as to what we're doing next, but.
So if you have some direction, then certainly, but I don't see anything that would change. I'm just trying to figure out, are we giving them direction to take?
I think and again, are you just looking for more time? Do you want more time?
I could, but we can go to a vote. That's fine.
Yeah, okay. It's your guys', okay. So, to reiterate, the motion on the floor is to approve the 2025 legislative priorities as they are presented, with the exception of removing the property tax cap as a priority. Is that correct? Okay. Motion and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. We've had discussion, and now I will call for a vote. All in favor of adopting the legislative priorities as presented with removing property tax cap, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3. I can't see Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
My mental health puppet, yeah.
Is he gone?
The problem is they're split. They're split. They're split, I think.
We haven't voted no,
Are
but
they?
you'd only have 2 no's. Can
Does he
you?
have a vote?
How's he communicating with you? Can you email him back and ask him if he has a vote on this? Is he? Well, I mean, we have a vote.
We can put him on a phone out in the open, put him on
Can you
speaker.
call him?
Can staff use that excuse too, or is that?
Stop. Yeah, well, that would
Yeah, we
be
might
great,
need your
please.
puppet.
Yeah.
Your mental health puppet. I'd be like,
If he, yes, then I have no problem voting on this, so.
uh-oh, that's a different problem.
Yeah, it's 3.
Yeah, so we just had a vote. We're in the middle of a vote. We just had a vote on this motion, or we're in the middle of a vote, so we called for the vote. We have 3 in favor, and now we are asking.
Yeah, but you
what-
got it, he needs to understand what we're voting
So
on.
we are voting on Stuckey's motion, Councilmember Stuckey's motion of removing approving the 2025 legislative priorities with the removal of the property tax cap. And so the mayor has called for the vote. It's been motioned and seconded. He's called for the vote. How do you vote?
Currently, no.
No.
So it's 3 yeses.
So you have to call the rest of the vote, though, to make sure.
Right,
we get
so
3.
all are opposed. So we have 3 no's and we have 3 yeses.
Right.
Yep. No, and Councilmember Hoffmeyer is a no. And Councilmember Marshall, Councilmember Stuckey, and Councilmember Arms are a yes.
You improve the document, that's what happens.
Right, and my vote would be no.
So for clarification, that just simply means we've not approved our legislative.
That's right, you haven't approved your legislative priorities, yes.
All right, thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Shane.
All right, bye.
Right-click it from here.
All right, so with that, it will come back next month.
No, it'll
for-
come back on the 19th,
Oh, sorry, yes, on the 19th.
but I'm using the vote as my basis for what I'm bringing back. I just want to be clear
You're
about that.
bringing back the same thing.
Yes, okay, I just making sure. Okay,
Bring
thank you.
back 2. So I would bring back this version, and then I would bring back one without the property tax on it, so they have 2 things to vote on.
But
Or
didn't
2
you-
options to pick
Didn't you
from.
just vote not to remove the?
Correct.
That's why I'm saying, so shouldn't they have both options to pick from? No?
I don't know that we need 2.
Julie's
That's
giving me a
fine.
look.
Okay, that's fine.
The city clerk is.
We were just trying to make it easy, so. Okay. There are no reports and discussion items. There's no executive session. There being no further business,